Two men lie dead on a muddy hill in Brazil. They aren't dressed for a hike. They're wearing expensive, tailored suits. There are no bullet holes, no blood. They are lying side by side, hands by their sides, as if they are sleeping. But they aren't sleeping, and they aren't blindfolded. Strapped to their faces, covering their eyes, are crude masks made of solid sheet lead. Lead has one job. It blocks radiation. It shields you from a blast. It stops X-rays. These men didn't die fleeing a killer. They died waiting. They climbed that hill, lay down in the dirt, and covered their eyes because they were expecting a light so bright it would burn them blind. Welcome to Frequency Unsolved. The rain didn't wash anything away in August of 1966. It just made the shadows darker and the mud deeper. Down in Rio de Janeiro, the samba clubs were dry and hazy, but across the bay in Niterói, the sky was weeping. It had been raining for days, a relentless, soaking downpour that turned the red clay of the hills into grease. It was August 20th, a Saturday. The deluge had finally paused just enough for a local boy to go fly a kite on Morro de Vintém Hill. It's not a majestic peak. It's a scrubby, overgrown hump of land rising out of the suburbs, tangled with dense vegetation and slick paths. The boy pushes through the wet foliage, the smell of damp earth heavy in the air, and then the other smell hits him. Sweeter, heavier, the smell of things that have been sitting out in the Brazilian humidity for 3 days. He pushes through the brush and finds them, the two men, the suits, the masks. He drops his kite string and runs screaming for the police. When the authorities finally drag themselves up the slope, slipping and sliding in the mud, they find a scene that defies every procedural manual they have. It wasn't a robbery. It wasn't a gang hit. It was a tableau, a staged scene of bizarre expectation. To understand the end, we have to go back to the beginning. We have to trace the steps of the dead. Their names were Mano Pereira da Cruz and Miguel Jose Viana. They weren't spies. They weren't international jewel thieves. They were electronic technicians from Campos dos Goitacazes, a town way up north. They fixed TVs. They tinkered with radios. They were the guys you called when your picture went fuzzy. By all accounts, they were ordinary guys, solid citizens. 3 days before the kite boy found them, on Wednesday, August 17th, Manuel and Miguel tell their wives they're heading to São Paulo. The cover story is solid. They need to buy supplies for their electronics business. And they say they're going to buy a used car. They have money, a lot of money. 2.3 million cruzeiros in cash stashed on their bodies. That's a small fortune in 1966. You don't walk around with that kind of scratch unless you have a very specific plan. They get on a bus in Campos, but they never make it to São Paulo. They get off the bus hours early in Niterói. Why change the plan? Why get off in a city where you don't know anyone right in the middle of a biblical rainstorm? The trail picks up in downtown Niterói. It's pouring. The streets are running like rivers. Manuel and Miguel, they're already acting strangely. They step into a shop. They're wearing these nice suits, remember? And they buy raincoats, cheap plastic ponchos to throw over their tailored jackets. They keep moving. They hit a bar. They buy a bottle of mineral water. Just water. They get the deposit receipt for the bottle. They hang on to it like it's a golden ticket. The bartender later remembers them vividly. He says Miguel looked anxious, wired. He kept checking his watch, glancing at the door, glancing at the sky. The rain keeps falling. The afternoon starts to bleed into evening. The last time anyone sees them alive, they're walking toward Vintém Hill. Two technicians in suits and plastic raincoats, carrying a bottle of water and a pocket full of cash, trudging up a muddy, desolate track into the gathering darkness. It makes zero sense. Nothing about this picture fits together. Why wear suits to climb a muddy hill in a rainstorm? Why take off the raincoats once you get up there? Because that's how they were found. The cheap plastic raincoats were folded neatly beside the bodies. They had cut palm leaves to make a bed on the wet ground. They laid down on the vegetation, exposing their expensive wool suits to the torrential rain. And then they put on the masks. The cops, they're fumbling around the scene. It's a mess. The mud, the smell, the rain washing away trace evidence. They check the pockets of the soggy suits. No money? The 2.3 million cruzeros? Gone. Vanished into the wet air. But they find something else. Something far more valuable to us and far more haunting. A small notebook in Miguel's pocket. The pages are damp, the ink is blurred, but the message is legible. It's written in a frantic shorthand style. It reads like a technical manual for a procedure that doesn't exist. The note said, 1630 be at agreed place. 1830 swallow capsules. After effect, protect metals, wait for mask signal. Let me read that again, slowly. Let the words sink in. 1630 be at agreed place. Okay, that's Vintém Hill. They made that appointment. They were on time. 1830 swallow capsules. Capsules. What capsules? Were they poison? Were they psychedelic? Some home-brewed concoction meant to open the doors of perception? After the effect, protect metals. Protect metals. What metals? The electronics parts they didn't buy? Or perhaps the lead masks themselves? And the kicker, the phrase that keeps me up at night. Wait for mask signal. Wait for mask signal? What in God's name does that mean? What signal were they waiting for up on that dark, rain-soaked hill? We know lead has one primary function in physics, shielding. It shields against radiation, against energy. The theories started flying almost immediately. The press ate it up. This was the golden age of flying saucers, and Vintém Hill was prime real estate for the true believers. The UFO theory was the big one. People in the neighborhood, the ones living in the shacks at the base of the hill, they started talking. Yeah, they said. We saw lights up there that Wednesday night. Strange, orange, glowing lights hovering over the peak right around the time that Miguel and Manuel were swallowing their capsules. Was the mask signal a beam from a spaceship? Were these two poor saps expecting to be beamed up? Did they think the capsules would prepare their bodies for interstellar travel and the masks would protect their retinas from the drive exhaust? It sounds insane, but dig a little deeper into their lives back in Compass. It turns out Manuel and Miguel weren't just fixing Philcos. They were deep into what they called scientific spiritualism. They were trying to bridge the gap between technology and the occult. They were building radios designed to contact the dead. They were holding seances in their workshops, surrounded by vacuum tubes and oscilloscopes. These guys were playing with fire, mixing heavy industry with high strangeness. Maybe they weren't waiting for aliens. Maybe they were trying to open a door to somewhere else entirely. The agreed place, a thin spot between worlds. The capsules to loosen their souls from their bodies, the lead masks to shield them from the blinding light of the other side. But then the noir curtain drops back down. The cynical voice in my head says, forget the aliens, forget the ghosts. Look at the mud, look at the empty pockets. Where did the 2.3 million cruceros go? Two guys walk up a hill with a fortune. 3 days later, two guys are dead on the hill, and the fortune is gone. That doesn't spell UFO abduction to me. That spells robbery. Was there a third man? Someone who knew about their obsessions. Someone who played on their gullibility. A con artist posing as a guru, a medium, or an extraterrestrial contact. Someone who told them, bring the cash. It's necessary for the ascension. Meet me on the hill. Take these pills. Put on the masks so you aren't blinded by the glory. Imagine the scene. The rain is hammering down. The third man watches from the shadows of the trees. He watches them check their watches. 6:30 p.m. He watches them swallow the capsules. They take the pills. It's not a gateway drug to the cosmos. It's poison, or just enough sedative to knock them out. They lie down, expecting the heavens to open. They strap the masks on. They blind themselves voluntarily. And the third man walks out of the brush. He rifles their pockets. He takes the cash. He leaves them to die of exposure and overdose in the pouring rain. We turned to the autopsy for answers. We wanted the science to cut through the fog. We got nothing. The police left the bodies on that hill for 2 full days after they were discovered. By the time they got Manuel and Miguel down to the morgue, the heat and humidity had done terrible things. The organs were practically liquid. The coroner couldn't find any trace of poison. No cyanide, no strychnine, nothing obvious. But in that state of decomposition, subtle poisons would have vanished anyway. And what if the capsules weren't poison? What if they were just something that interacted fatally with the cold and the wet? The official cause of death remains, to this day, unknown. Cardiac arrest brought on by something. Every lead hit a brick wall. The wife of one of them admitted they were part of a secret society, but clammed up when pressed for details. The bartender who served them the water vanished into the favelas. The money never resurfaced. But the image remains. It's the ultimate locked room mystery. Only the room is a muddy hilltop, and the ceiling is the open sky. Think about them up there. Really put yourself in the mud. The rain drumming on their plastic coats. The darkness closing in, checking their watches. 18:30. Time. They swallow the capsules, washing them down with mineral water. They feel the chemicals starting to work in their stomachs. They take off the raincoats. Why? A gesture of submission? A requirement of the ritual? To let the energy in? They lay down in their fine suits. They take those heavy, cold lead masks and strap them tight over their eyes, plunging themselves into absolute darkness. And they wait. They wait for the signal. Every minute must have felt like an hour. The rain soaking through their clothes, chilling their skin. The drugs taking hold, making their hearts hammer or their breath catch. Did they feel fear in those final moments, or anticipation? Did they hear footsteps approaching in the mud and think it was the contact they'd been dreaming of, only to realize too late it was just a man with empty eyes and greedy hands? Or did they just lie there, blind and freezing, as the drugs stopped their hearts, waiting for a light that never turned on? There is one final detail that chills me. If they were scammed, if it was just a robbery, why the masks? Why would a robber make them cut lead masks? A blindfold would have sufficed. A gun would have sufficed. The masks imply that someone, whether it was the victims or the killer, believed the light was real. You don't build lead shields for a lie. You build them because you are terrified of what you are about to see. Maybe they weren't tricked. Maybe the signal came. Maybe the radiation hit them. Maybe the thing they summoned on Vintém Hill arrived, took what it wanted, and left 2 empty shells behind. The rain has stopped for now outside my window, but the shadows in this room are still long. The frequency is filled with static tonight. We'll never know what they were waiting for on that hill, but whatever it was, it found them. And it left behind a mystery so dense that even the rain couldn't wash it away. But this is just one story from the shadows. If you want to dive deeper into the unexplained, I have another file waiting for you on the screen right now. It digs into a mystery that is even more disturbing than the one you just heard. Click it now and let's continue the investigation. Until then, check your locks and keep the lights on.